Thanks, Frank. And welcome back to the program, Greg Hunt. Good morning, Mr. Hunt.
Good morning, Paul.
Well, it's World Environment Day. I believe you have something to offer other than a carbon tax.
We do. The single best thing you can do right now to help reduce emissions on a grand scale and to help protect the world's biodiversity is a global rainforest recovery program. And in a bipartisan spirit, what I propose and what we're proposing is that Australia co-hosts with Indonesia a global pledging conference to help with the great rainforests of the world. If you can reduce the emissions by half from the destruction of rainforests by 2020, up to 4 billion tonnes of emissions could be saved. It's about protecting the great rainforests and reducing emissions in a practical way, and we would offer that approach in a bipartisan way with the government. Let's look for a global rainforest recovery program and agreement before the end of the year.
Well, this was an initiative, I remember, of the Howard government with Malcolm Turnbull, I think, as Environment Minister. What's happened to it in the intervening years?
Look, unfortunately, the government has dropped the ball. We put $200 million on the table. That money has been maintained, but effectively very little additional has been done. And right now, whether it's in Indonesia or Brazil, in parts of Central Africa, the ability to protect the great rainforests is both vital for biodiversity, but it's also the single biggest, fastest thing that the world could do to reduce emissions over the coming 5 years. And I think that's a constructive thing, which hopefully everybody can agree to, and which hopefully the government will adopt. And if they don't do it, then we will do it if we're in government.
OK, trees are the key here. Why is it then that our opposition here in our federal parliament, the coalition, is wanting to defer the Carbon Farm initiative, which will plant trees in Australia and pay farmers to do it?
Well, we support the principle. We support the legislation of capturing carbon in our trees and our soils, in our revegetation.
Well, I have no doubt that you do, but your national partners are actually on the record. They went public. They claim that this will take up farmland that could be used to grow crops, and it may even encourage shonks.
Unfortunately, the legislation as it's designed at the moment is not filled out. It doesn't have the protections that the National Farmers Federation has called for in terms of protecting prime agricultural land.
Well, I saw a press release from them on that, and they do support it.
They have called for a very important amendment. So the critical thing here is, having lived through the home insulation program, the green loans program, the cash for clunkers non-start, we won't take any blank cheques from the government, and they've put legislation up which is a blank cheque. So support for the principle. We'd like to get it through. We've said to the government we will work with them, but at the moment they've simply put up a shell, and it's the same problem of the home insulation program and other programs where they haven't got the detail right and they don't have the credit to be taken on trust.
Well, the government was quick to pick up on your colleague Barnaby Joyce committing to scrapping tax cuts and pension rises along with the carbon tax. Here's Minister Combet.
Senator Joyce has confirmed that the coalition would in effect impose a double whammy on pensioners and on families and ordinary householders.
Well, I think we should go to base here. Do you believe the carbon tax will in fact get up? Will we have a carbon tax by July, 12 months?
Well, I won't preempt what the independents may decide, but I do believe that we shouldn't have a carbon tax because it's going to drive up the cost of electricity, drive up the cost of petrol.
We know. Barnaby Joyce is committed, as is your leader, to repealing the carbon tax and along with it the compensation that's offered. That's going to be hard if there's a tax cut out there already and pensioners have seen a rise.
Well, let me make this point and be absolutely categorical. There will be no broad-based tax cuts under a government that Julia Gillard leads. There will not be broad-based tax cuts. The tax cuts, as they have been talked about, are phantom tax cuts. For people over $80,000, they will effectively face, to use Greg Combet's words, a double whammy of increasing petrol and electricity, and now potentially, on Professor Garneau's words, an increase in tax rates.
That's right.
This is a huge issue about phantom tax cuts
I think
and what
issue-
we're facing now.
Yeah, but the issue is that whoever doesn't get those tax cuts, are you going to take them away from the wage earners that do?
Our principle has been clear since day one that if there is no tax, then you don't need the compensation. As to whatever tax cuts they may or may not throw up, but at the moment they're phantom tax cuts and there will never be broad-based tax cuts, we'll deal with an overall tax package at the next election. Time
for a break. When we return with the panel, John Howard's Environment Minister assesses the opposition's direct action. And the hold your breath moment of the week, when the hung Parliament briefly lost confidence in the Speaker, sparking the prospect of an instant crisis.
The result of the division is ayes 71, noes 72. The question is therefore negative, and after question time, I will be taking the time to consider my position.
Please, Mr Speaker, do not add to the difficulties of this day by feeling that you cannot continue in the chair.